am Jess Falborn. I am an IFBB Women's Physique Pro bodybuilder. Picture behind me is from when I won my pro card in 2022. And I'm currently 2 weeks out from my professional debut at the New York Pro. I got into fitness as a career when I turned 30, and I did my first bodybuilding show, I think when I turned 31. And before that, I was a lobbyist and in sales. So I worked for 10 years. I lived for 12 years in Washington, D.C., but worked for 10 years as a lobbyist and selling like membership products to lobbyists. And after a while, I just realized like I was, failing forward and landing great jobs, but I just wasn't truly like fulfilled or happy. And so I just woke up one day and was like, this is not the life I want anymore. So I decided to get healthier, got into CrossFit, got into sports, and then left my career, took a summer off, did like an Eat, Pray, Love trip, went to Europe for like 6 weeks and came back and was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So it's been kind of a whirlwind. And I didn't think I would compete in bodybuilding, but I did it initially because I wanted to be able to teach my clients how to be really disciplined and apply that to any facet of their life. And then I won my first show and I just fell in love with it. And I was like, all right, I'm hooked for however long I can do this. I'm hooked. So yeah, it's been a fun ride, and I'm really excited to make my professional debut in just 2 weeks. So I'm originally from New York. I live in New Jersey now, but I'm originally from New York. And when I graduated high school, I went to University of Delaware, and I thought I wanted to go to law school afterwards. And so I majored in international relations and languages, and I studied Spanish and Arabic. And I ended up working for the State Department at the U.S. Embassy in Tunisia, in North Africa. So I was there for about 4 months. And it was an internship. It was between my junior and my senior year. And I realized I was like, I'm really into this stuff. And I did diplomatic security. So it was security for the diplomats. So think like Secret Service for the diplomats. And I'm making it sound way cooler than it is. Like they wouldn't let me have an earpiece or anything, but I pretended. I was like, I'm a badass here. So I was like, 19, 20 years old. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And I figured having a law degree would be helpful, but I definitely wanted to go down like the security or diplomacy route. So came back from that and started interviewing and while I was there, I was translating because I had studied Arabic. So I was translating a lot of like crime reports. And so I was getting a lot of like reps, like experience doing this. So came back and I interviewed for jobs. This was my senior year of college, interviewed for jobs with State Department, with FBI, with CIA, with Secret Service. And I mean, that process is quite lengthy. So like by the time I graduated, nothing had come to fruition yet. I was still like in the process. But I had some friends that lived in DC, and they were like, all right, if you want to get a job here, you should come here and you should work first and apply for law schools here. So I ended up moving there, got a job as an immigration paralegal at a small like boutique immigration law firm, and was translating Arabic and Spanish into English, and continued to apply for law school, took the LSATs, continued to apply for like diplomatic jobs or security jobs. And the more I did it, the more I realized it wasn't something I wanted to do as a career. Like I wanted to incorporate some of that stuff, but it wasn't really for me. And so ended up just, like I said, kind of failing forward, continuing to take great jobs, and they looked great on my resume, and they were very high paying, and there was a lot of clout, but I ended up not really enjoying it after a while. So I had a job where I worked for a like membership services company that serviced like the healthcare industry, and I traveled all around the country selling these membership services to different hospital service lines. I did the same thing with associations and corporations that were based in DC or had like DC offices, and I would sell membership services to them. So I built out sales teams for that. And then one of the organizations that I ended up selling the products to asked me if I wanted to come and be their chief of staff. So I ended up being the chief of staff over for the government affairs team at the National Restaurant Association. And that was my last job in that career field before I made the transition. So yeah, it was something that I was always passionate about. And like, listen, I still love like security work, and I'm like a huge true crime nut. I mean, like what millennial isn't, you know? Law and Order SVU is my favorite show, like stuff like that. But I also kind of realized, like, as a young 20 something woman in DC, if I wanted to go into diplomacy and diplomatic work, I would constantly be moving posts every 2 years or so. And at that point, I was thinking, like, well, how am I going to have a family? How am I going to have a partner? Because what I was thinking was, what guy is going to follow a woman around? Usually it's the other way around. And so that was kind of part of my decision making as well. And then I didn't want to be far from my family either. So so I scratched the travel itch in other ways. Like I've traveled a ton over the past like 15 years or so. But yeah, that's kind of how I ended up down that path.
Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. So is that something, the feeling of being kind of in like an exciting or a moving or evolving kind of like schedule and like different roles and different tasks, is that something that you find like is something that you kind of gravitated towards naturally, or you kind of mentioned it was just like kind of like going forward with different opportunities that just kind of presented themselves, or like is that something you feel like translated over into you being comfortable with the fitness industry? Because I do feel like fitness is very much, it's definitely not your average 9 to 5, kind of deal.
It's not, no, especially when you work for yourself, you know, like I always tell people, my greatest advice is you work for your own personal mission, not an organization. You may work for an organization, but you've got to have your own personal mission. And if it lines up with the organization you work with, great. But I think why working for myself works so well is because I am, not that I'm a workaholic, I mean, I am, but like I like to have a lot of irons in the fire, and I like to be pursuing a lot of different opportunities, and I like to diversify what I do. So for example, like I'm part of a larger bodybuilding coaching team, Camp Jansen. And I'm a coach on that team. I'm also coached by one of the coaches on that team. But I don't coach a whole lot of competitors. I have some competitors I coach, but I also coach lifestyle clients. I also do CrossFit myself and coach CrossFit and coach nutrition wise CrossFitters and endurance athletes and obstacle course race athletes. And so it kind of runs the gamut. So I kind of like having multiple avenues that I'm pursuing within fitness and staying busy all the time. Like I'll be up, for example, like 5:45, 6 a.m. And I'll have virtual clients first thing in the morning. I do my cardio, meal prep. Maybe I'll have a 2 hour break, and then I'm working again, in-person clients, do my own training, maybe an hour break. Then I answer more emails. And I could, in theory, work not consecutively, but between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. are the hours of my workday. So I like that because I don't know, fitness is my life. So there's not like a hard line between where work stops and personal stuff starts.
Right.
And I found that like it was difficult for me to do that in my last career because then you blur the lines and the boundaries, and there are massive expectations for you to just constantly be in the office or constantly answering emails. Whereas if I work for myself, I can say, no, my work hours are 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern, and I don't work on Saturday, Sunday. If someone has a problem with that, okay, so then don't work with me. Yeah. Like that's it. I can call the shots. So I think it does translate well to working in fitness as opposed to any of like the formal jobs that I was in.
Hmm. So kind of going back to maybe even pre-career stuff,
Mm-hmm.
was fitness and being active something that played a role in your life? And did that play a role in like what you kind of wanted to do, or like you wanted to in some ways just be active, like with your career, or really like, because it seems like security would be something that you would want to, have this outward appearance of, at least, right? The sense of,
Strength.
hey,
Yeah.
yeah, strength, and I'm confident, and those kind of things.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I mean, it was like it was a big, it was valued in our household growing up to be strong. So I'm the oldest of three. Me, my sister's 3 years younger, and then my brother's 15 years younger. So he was not planned, of course, but like a ton of fun to have like a younger brother finally. But we were raised in this household where like, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, when it was like very popular for women to be like stick thin, and like it was very enforced in my house that strength was beautiful. And me and my sister were not like stick thin girls. We just always were built with muscle. And so um I never questioned it. I always thought like, okay, if I'm strong, if I'm powerful, that's beautiful. That's important. That's a value that I hold very near and dear to me. So I grew up playing sports at a really young age. I played softball first. I ran track. I played soccer, and then I got into lacrosse. And then in high school, I was a varsity athlete for soccer and lacrosse. Our lacrosse team went to the New York State Final Four a couple times. And then I had a scholarship to go play lacrosse at SUNY Binghamton and in upstate New York. And it was between there. I also was looking at Manhattan College, and then I went and toured University of Delaware, where I ended up going, and I was not nearly good enough to play there. But I toured, and I was like, "This is the college experience I want." So I chose not to pursue collegiate athletics, and in hindsight, I mean, I don't regret it. Like I loved my college experience, but I do miss out on like the team sports. Like I kind of wish I had more time playing team sports. My brother, he graduates college in 2 weeks, the same day as my show, and he was a college lacrosse player up at SUNY Plattsburgh.
Hmm.
So when he was little, he was born when I was a freshman in high school, and he grew up coming to all of my lacrosse games, and then he got into lacrosse himself and ended up. My dad was super happy that he finally had a kid that played collegiate level sports. so he embodied everything that everyone wanted, but it was pretty cool to see that, like, since athletics and strength and physical fitness was so valued in our family, that my brother ended up pursuing that at a collegiate level. But yeah, it was always like a backbone for me. And even when I had times where I like, in college in my early 20s where I wasn't as diligent about it, I just remember like I said, when I remember my 30th birthday pretty vividly, and like waking up after like an absolute bender, like partied for my 30th birthday, and like had a huge work trip and partied to like deal with the stress from that. I just vividly remember waking up and looking in the mirror and being like, this is not my life. Like career wise, health, like physical health, mental health, I have to change something. And so I knew what I had to do because I had always done it before. I knew that like being in the gym was my happy place, coaching people was my happy place, being part of like a team atmosphere was my happy place, and being really competitive. Like I'm a very competitive person. I want to be able to work towards something all the time. So yeah, it definitely was a strong part of like my foundation.
When you decided to get into that, and I guess career wise as well, was it CrossFit that came first, or was it bodybuilding that came first, or maybe something
CrossFit.
else? CrossFit?
Yeah. Um, so after I went on my little eat, pray, love trip, I had already been doing CrossFit for like probably about a year at that point. And then I came back, and the guys who owned my CrossFit box and gym in DC also were good friends with, you ever heard of F45?
Yeah.
They were very good friends with the guys who started F45 because they were Australian. So the guys in DC were Australian. They knew the F45 guys, and they brought some of the first F45s to the East Coast of the US. So they opened up one in DC. They have a couple more there now, but and I just went to them and I was like, hey, like, can I just shadow? Can I just like learn to coach from you guys? Because that seems like group fitness is just like an, not that it's easy, but it would be easier than coaching CrossFit athletes, right? So I was like, can I just like shadow and learn? They were like, yeah, why not? So I started there and I would just shadow, and then I became an assistant coach there. And then my CrossFit box came to me and they were like, hey, like, you're doing that over there. Why don't you come over here and do it? They were a little bit jealous. And I was like, I didn't think I was honestly like ready for it or good enough. You know, I don't have my level 1 or anything. And they were like, get your level 1, we'll help you out with it. And then we'll have you start shadowing, assistant coaching, and then head coaching. And our CrossFit box was very competitive. We had a games team. We had some individual athletes that went to the games every year. So I would coach classes with like elite level athletes in the class, like 35 athletes at a time. Like it was a big CrossFit box. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I was doing that for a while. And one of the coaches that I worked with, he was my nutrition coach. He was like, and he was also a bodybuilder, like competitively, but not, he wasn't a pro. He was like, Jess, you should consider doing a bodybuilding show. And I was like, that's stupid. Like, who would starve themselves? Here I am on like 3 days of zero carbs right now. But I was like, no, this is so stupid. Like, why would I do that? And he was like, you have the genetics for it. Like, it's about to be summer. There's a show at the end of the summer. Like, you could diet for the summer. Like, you'll look good, you'll feel good, and then do a show and see how you do. I was like, all right, like I could be convinced. So I prepped for 16 weeks and had never been to a bodybuilding show before, and rolled up and won my first show. And I was like, all right, how do I make both of these exist at the same time? So I've continued to coach CrossFit the entire time I've been competing in bodybuilding, because I love CrossFit. I love what it's about. I love that it's a great catalyst for fitness for anyone. Anyone could do it, you know, as opposed to like bodybuilding. To be competitive in bodybuilding, not anyone can do that. So, and then when I moved up here to New Jersey to be closer to like family and to, you know, do work in fitness a little bit more, I started the CrossFit program here at my home gym, Signature Fitness. And so we've built that out over the last 2 years. So it's something that's always going to be a part of my life, but it came before bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm. Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. The Weight Room Podcast is thrilled to announce our new sponsor, Prime Science. They're leaders in harnessing scientific research to revolutionize your fitness journey. With a firm foundation in the latest health sciences, Prime Science offers innovative products to help you achieve and surpass your fitness and health goals. These tools are more than just accessories. They're the result of rigorous scientific research aimed at optimizing your health. Dive deeper into how you can transform your approach to fitness at primescience.co.uk. Trust me, with Prime Science, you're in scientifically sound hands. What have you noticed since, making that career change and obviously change, I'm sure, a lot of your habits getting into both CrossFit and bodybuilding? What have you just noticed about your life over the last couple of years that has been different?
Probably the lack of structure and being really disciplined about creating structure in anything. Because it's all too easy to like work in fitness and just get really complacent and just be like, okay, I'll train clients. Like, and it's commonly known, like personal trainers don't make a lot of money, but you can if you're smart about it and if you're disciplined. And I've worked really hard to, as I was kind of saying earlier, like set boundaries and enforce them, because no one's going to respect your boundaries if you don't enforce them. And so I preach that to a lot of like younger trainers I talk to. I'm like, you don't have to work 7 days a week. You don't have to be at your client's beck and call. If you set those boundaries and you respect them, people are going to respect your boundaries. So when I first got into fitness, I said yes to every opportunity because I had to, you got to make a living, and I had to figure out what my niche was. So I recommend that to anyone starting really in any career. Like, just say yes to everything, try it out, see what you like, and see where you kind of fit. But now having been in the game for a few years, and fortunately, having IFBB Pro next to my names for some reason makes people think I know what I'm talking about, which is not always the case. But in my case, I do. I'm fortunate to be able to like kind of call the shots a little bit more. So I can say like, no, I don't train clients on the weekends, or like, no, I don't train clients after 7 p.m. I don't do 6 a.m. sessions. Like, I only train clients during these hours, and these are my rates. And if you don't like it, there's another trainer for you. And I think people kind of respect that a lot more. They find value in what you're bringing to them because you believe in that value. In my 20s, I did not know how to articulate that and set boundaries and demonstrate that I was high value. And I've learned that on my own, like really without anyone kind of mentoring me through this, except for like, coaches I had that were like, Jess, you can't work 7 days a week. You're going to get burnt out, and you're not going to be able to do well as a bodybuilder because you're going to be so burnt out. So yeah, learning how to like set boundaries and be really disciplined definitely is something that I didn't go into it thinking that I would do that, but it definitely has been like a direct impact of working in fitness and working for myself too.
Yeah, just the adapting to different scenarios and environments and things. But
yeah.
talk a little bit about what that initial prep was like. You said you kind of just jumped into it, and it was this thing that somebody kind of in a way talked you into doing, and then it's 16 weeks later and you're standing on stage. But tell us a little bit of that in between time, the initial prep.
Looking back on it, I can't, like, I went on vacation. I went to my like college reunion. Like, like thinking about it now, I'm like, I would never travel during a contest prep, or at least not that close. I would never drink, I would never be like asking my coach, hey, can I have a week off of the plan because I'm going to Aruba or I'm going to a college reunion. But I guess, it was my first show. It was a small show. I didn't realize what it took to get there. And honestly, for what I ended up looking like on stage for my first show, like it wasn't too shabby considering I didn't like, not that I didn't give it 100%, but I thought I was giving it 100% then compared to what 100% is today. You just don't realize how much more you can dig and how much more you have in the tank. But even like my training sessions, they were just like so different, and I was still doing CrossFit as well. So again, now would never do that. In my off season, I'll do CrossFit workouts, but getting ready for a show, no, I absolutely not do a CrossFit workout. So I think at that point I was just thinking, oh, this is fun. This is something new I'm trying, and I'm still floating on everything I saved for my last career and like whatever. Whereas now I'm like, everything is so planned down to the cent, down to the minute. I schedule all of my meals and when I'm doing my cardio, and I check in with my coach nearly every day. So not that it wasn't as like disciplined, but it was just like level 1 versus now we're at like level 10 and there's no fucking ground.
Did you feel like a little, or did you maybe think that after that first show, going in and doing so well and doing what you did to win that show, when did it kick in for you? Like, hey, there are other levels to this.
So I came off stage and was like really excited, and I had my like prep coach and I had my posing coach, and they were good friends. And they left because they had to get to their own lives or whatever they were doing. And I went out to dinner with my dad and my sister because they came down for the show. And, I was just kind of in the moment, not really thinking about what was next. But I remember sitting there and my dad being like, so like, what's next? Like, are you going to do another one? Like, what's the plan? And since due to my placing at that show, I was nationally qualified. So I was able to do a national level show. And my first show was in figure, but I compete in women's physique now. So I remember my coaches telling me, they're like, you should really do women's physique. And I was like, no, I want to wear the heels. Like, figure wears the heels. Women's physique doesn't wear heels. And they were like, okay, but like, that's where your body's going to end up. Like, you just have a lot of muscle. And so that in the back of my head, and then my dad kind of asking me what's next, because he knew, like, seeing me grow up as an athlete, I always was thinking about what's next. Like, I want more. I always want more. So I was like, well, I'm nationally qualified. Like, I remember waking up the next day, I was like, I'm nationally qualified. And North Americans which is in Pittsburgh, was 2 weeks later, I think. And the winners of the show that I did, since it was also promoted by the same guys who promoted North Americans, the winners got free entry to North Americans. So, it would have been easy for me to do. And I just remember reaching out to my coach the next day and being like, can we do this? And he was like, I wish you had told me that yesterday, because I would have told you not to go binge last night and today. Like, I binged because I didn't know, I was like, I'm going to enjoy food. I didn't realize the ramifications. And like, all the lines are gone in my legs. Like, I almost edema. Like, I've eaten so much, I've drank so much. And he was like, let's see how the next few days go. And if we can like bring some of the water off, and maybe you can do it. But I like, literally the day of the show, there was no thought of what's next. There was no thought of, oh, I could do a national level show and I could potentially become a professional bodybuilder at that show. It was just, okay, I'm going to do this show. And then that was it. And then, 24 hours later, we were talking about doing one of the biggest national level shows, which fast forward. So that was 2019, 2020 and 2021. I did national level shows. I did the same one, Junior USA's down in Charleston. 2022, I ended up getting my pro card at North Americans. So the show that I thought I was going to go do in 2019 at the beginning of my career, I ended up actually going back to. It was quite serendipitous. I ended up going back to and getting my pro card there. But it wasn't the plan. And I ended up obviously, not doing it because I had dug myself into way too deep of a hole, like binge eating after the show. But it worked out for the best anyways. Like, I don't regret how things happen, because everything works out the way it's supposed to. But yeah, it was just kind of, it wasn't on my radar. And then all of a sudden, 24 hours later, it was. So
Do you ever think about like what would have happened though if you did, show up at that show and win? I mean,
yeah.
do you think about like what would I have developed in the same way, or what would have happened, or I wouldn't have learned this, or I wouldn't have had this experience of, losing a few times and trying to get there, and the grit that maybe I gained through that and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I know a handful, like maybe 2 or 3 people that have ever won at their first national show and turned pro in like their second show ever. And I know I would not have, considering what I looked like at my first show. But say I had, I don't think I'd be living in New Jersey right now. I wouldn't have, I wouldn't be a coach on Camp Jansen. I mean, I don't think my career would have unfolded the way it has, because literally everything I've done has led up to where I am now. Also, I think I would have probably stayed in figure, and that wasn't the best division for my physique. Because after that first show, I never did figure again. I just grew into women's physique, and went and did my first national show the following year, physique. So Yeah, I mean, I think about it sometimes, but I'm not someone who, I always say to people, like, don't stress about what's happened and don't stress about what hasn't happened yet.
Hmm.
There's no sense, right? Like, focus on the moment that you're in, and you can plan for the future, right? You can reflect on the past, but I'm not going to stress about like what ifs. But yeah, I think to your point, like in 2020, in 2020, I was prepping for my first national level show and COVID hit, and I had just launched my business. So that was a hell of a year. I prepped for 6 months for that show. And my first national level show, my first show in women's physique, and I came in second. And I was so frustrated. But looking back, like second at your first ever national level show, pretty damn good. But I just remember like after that, I was like, I'm gonna do another show right after this. And then sitting at dinner with my mom and my coach that night and being like, I don't have it in me. Like, I just don't have it in me. It's prepped for 6 months. Like, I don't have it in me. So I was like, I'm going to, take an off season and I'll come back next year and I'm going to get my pro. And so another year comes and, I've got all this, like, I'm ready. I've got another year of building my physique out, switched coaches, had like a much more like elite level coach. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back to the scene of the crime. I'm going to go back where I took second place and show them that I've made these changes. And I took their feedback and I took second place again. And I remember coming off stage, you're on stage, you're like, oh, thank you so much. In your head, you're like, bitch. And then I went straight into the bathroom, like didn't show any emotion, went into the bathroom and I punched the wall of one of the stalls. I was so mad. I was so mad. And at that show, so many people had traveled. Like I had like 3 or 4 clients, my sister, my aunt, my dad, my mom, like so many people came to see me at that show. And I just was so frustrated that I felt like nothing had changed. But in hindsight, so much had changed. Like the placing didn't matter. Like I grew a ton. And the fire was lit even more. And then I remember, so that was 2021. And after that, I had a like a bit of a health scare. And it was really just from like pushing myself so hard for so long to compete. And we're trying to do another show and another show. And my body was not responding. And I remember I went to get blood work done, and the nurse practitioner was reviewing the blood work, and she was like, "This is kind of like the dashboard of a car when all the lights are on. Like, stop what you're doing right now." And I was like, "Okay." Like, I didn't understand the ramifications of everything that you do in bodybuilding and how it affects your health. And so had I turned pro at my second ever show, who knows where my health would be? Like I've learned so much from that, even though it was an awful experience. But I remember going through that like health phase where I couldn't even train for 6 weeks. Like I was on the border of like rhabdomyolysis. Like it was not good. And that was when I decided I was like, I'm done with DC. A lot of my friends had moved out of the city or they were like, getting engaged, having kids, buying homes. And I was like, I just want to be closer to my family. Like, I'm done here. And I said to myself, like, my 2 big goals moving back up to New Jersey were to get my pro card and to build out my fitness empire business. Because New Jersey is such a mecca for bodybuilding and fitness. So I was like, I'm gonna do this. But again, like had I turned pro at my second show, who knows if I would have moved back up this way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I learned a lot through each of those experiences, and then I'll add this quick anecdote. So, getting ready for the show in 2022, I was with the same coach that I was with in 2021, and we were preparing to compete at North Americans. And 4 weeks before the show, we had kind of hit a major plateau and my body wasn't responding. And I was just looking really fatigued and tired and my legs were looking inflamed. And he kind of blamed it on me. He was like, you rushed us into this prep. I don't think you should do this show. There's something else going on, like hormonally or something. And I don't know if you're familiar with the schedule for national level shows, but after North Americans, leading up to North Americans, there's a few in a row. After North Americans, that's usually Labor Day weekend. There's not another national level show until December. So if I didn't do that show, I'd be prepping for another few months. And I was like, no, I've come all this way. I didn't come this far just to come this far. And so I said to him, with all due respect, fuck you. I'm going to get my pro card. And he was like, I wish you the best of luck, but no, like you won't. And there's something wrong with your health, which he probably wasn't wrong about that, but we hadn't tried everything you possibly could try. So I switched coaches at 4 weeks before winning my pro card, to my very good friend and now coach and mentor and boss, Justin. And I had been friends with him just via Instagram. And I remember reaching out to him and I was like, hey, this is what's going on. Could you take me for a rush prep for 4 weeks? And could we get my pro card? And he was like, I'm not going to promise you anything, but absolutely I'll work with you. And so man, did we learn a lot. In 4 weeks, in 28 days, I lost 18 pounds and we won my pro card. Wow. And I just remember that was such a transformative time. Again, had I turned pro earlier, I would have never built the grit and the determination that it took for me to grind for 4 weeks when I'd already been prepping for so long. And I had people telling me, you're not going to get this. This isn't going to happen. And the biggest lesson, and I always preach this to people, is bet on yourself. Trust your gut, bet on yourself. There was not going to be anyone that was going to tell me, you're not going to get this. And that was, to this day, Justin says, he's like, that was my greatest Houdini act. I did not know if that was going to happen. And I was like, no, bro, I knew. I knew in my heart of hearts, I'm making this happen. It's just a matter of who's going to be coaching me, but I'm going to make it happen. I would have never been able to build up that character had I earned my pro card much earlier in my career. So I don't regret the journey at all, because it's a great story too, when you tell people no, I said, screw you, I'm going to do this and I'm going to figure out a way to do it. And then you actually do it.
The Weight Room Podcast is proud to be partnered with Prime Science, our new sponsor and a trailblazer in health technology. Prime Science is dedicated to pushing the boundaries of what's possible in health and fitness through extensive research and scientific validation. Their products are a testament to their commitment to safe, scientifically backed health optimization. To learn more about how Prime Science is redefining fitness with valid science, visit primescience.co.uk. Join us in embracing a future where fitness meets rigorous scientific practice with Prime Science. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. At what point did you feel like, okay, yeah, I went from this is something that I'm doing to this is something that I really want to now this is something that I kind of am. I just haven't officially gained that yet.
Yeah. I think the prep leading up to when I won my pro card in 2022, that was when it started. Because I was, like I said, I knew in my heart, there was just something in me that was this is going to happen and I'm going to make it happen no matter what, which is why I was very confident making such a crazy decision 4 weeks before the show. And I have a YouTube channel and we're filming the second series now, but the first series, in the last episode that we filmed before I earned my pro card, I actually said at the end of the episode, we didn't release it until after the show, but I said, I will see you guys again when I'm pro. I knew, and I think that was the pro mindset where I was I'm willing to put everything else in my life on hold. And it's not for the rest of my life, but for this season, and I'm going to make this happen. And I'm going to be as smart as possible. And I think when I switched coaches too, I told myself, I was you're going to 100% trust this person, despite, because I've had other shitty coaches before and it leads you to not really trust a coach 100%. And especially if you're very knowledgeable in nutrition and fitness, you oftentimes are your own worst enemy, because then you can start to justify and think of things, and you're like, oh well, like if it's like 5 grams of this fat, I could just substitute it with this, like, no. So I remember thinking, like, you're going to 100% trust, because this is what elite athletes do. They select a few opinions that are most important to them and keep those people closest and screw everyone else in their opinions. And so I like had finally formed a core group of like my posing coach, my prep coach, maybe 1 or 2 other individuals whose opinions I really, really valued, and surrounded myself just with them in the last 4 weeks. But I will say, after I earned my pro card, I thought I was just going to hop into my pro debut and win my pro debut and go to the Olympia in the same year, because I shoot for the moon. No matter what I do, I shoot for the moon. And I remember, I come home and my coach Justin is like, I think you just need the rest of the year and we'll make your pro debut next year. I was like, okay, I can agree with you on that. And then as we're reverse dieting out, my body's not responding. I'm rapidly gaining body fat and can't figure out why. And it turned out I had developed a lot of gut issues. And like most people have gut issues and they don't realize it. And I just had gut issues that had been undiagnosed by doctors for years and years and years. But that manifests when you like push your body to limits. And so all the health issues I had years before were undiagnosed gut issues. Now it was even worse. And now it was presenting itself as worse. So anyways, I had the opportunity to work with a functional health specialist and fix my gut. And I remember Justin saying to me, he was like, this means that you're not going to compete in 2023. And it's not because you have to put on any more size. Like, you have a pro level physique, but we have to fix these issues. Otherwise, you're never going to get as conditioned as we need you to be. You're going to ruin your health for the rest of your life. And so that was a turning point for me, where I was like, well, do I want to be an impatient athlete and have an amateur mindset? Or do I want to invest in my long-term vision and my longevity as a human being and my health, and actually fix this and do it the right way? And so I promised myself, I was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to treat this just like I would treat a contest prep. So you still have something to work towards, because off seasons, like I'm sure you've heard this from other athletes you've talked to, like it's tough because they're very nebulous. Like, you don't have a set date you're working towards, versus a contest prep, you've got the set date you're working towards. So that's where a lot of people fall off. They're like, and every Monday they're like, I'm back on track. I'm back on track. I treated my 14-month off season like it was a contest prep. We fixed my gut in record time, and every day I went into the gym and I did my job. And I mean, we've done some comparison photos from like what I looked like before I won my pro card to what I looked like same time out from my pro debut. And it just goes to like, it's so obvious the changes in my physique. So I think that pro mindset kind of started in that like 4 weeks leading up to the pro card win, when I was like, I'm going to trust someone else. I'm going to believe in myself. I'm going to do whatever it takes. But then having to like make those tough decisions that I didn't want to have to make, but knowing that it would be better for my long-term goals to like suffer in the short term. And I don't think there's a lot of people that don't like to make those decisions. Like, I've talked to so many people that turned pro right around the same time as me, and they're like, or maybe a year after rather, and they're doing their pro debut this year, and they're like, rushing to get on stage. They barely had a 4-month off season. And I'm like, what's the rush? Like, the stage is always going to be there. Don't you want, when you get on that pro level stage, don't you want to belong there? Like, I don't want to be 16th place. I don't even want to be 5th place. I want to win my pro debut. And if at the very least be top 2, top 3. And I think that's the pro level mindset, that like you do the work that no one else sees to show up and look like you've been doing the work forever. Had I turned pro at my second show ever, I don't think I would be a very good pro. I don't think I would have made the Olympia. because I didn't know enough. But I can promise you I will make the Olympia this year. Like it's gonna happen. I know, like I know it in my heart. So
Okay, so this is kind of a coming back to what you had talked about a little bit in regards to like the your YouTube series and things like that. Because I think it's really interesting when you can look back on content and kind of see where you were in that moment.
mhm,
It's kind of a snapshot in time. When you initially said, "Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to film all this stuff," what
mhm.
were your kind of goals and intentions behind that?
You know, it's initially I was hesitant to even start the YouTube channel. And my very good friend Chris, who is my videographer and really manages the channel for me, he urged me and he was like, people want to hear what you have to say. People want to see your work ethic. They want to follow your journey. And I was like, no way people want to hear what I have to say. Like, I am quirky. I babble. Like, I'm very direct. I'm passionate. I'm like loud. Like, people aren't going to want to watch this. And he was like, try it out. Let's see. And I was like, all right. So we filmed the first episode and like overnight it grew and there were like so many viewers. And the cool thing is people in my gym were coming up to me like, hey, I saw that first episode, that was so inspiring, like I loved watching that. I was like, all right, so I'll film another one. And I think I did 4 or 5 in that first series. And honestly I did as many as I could afford, because it's not cheap and bodybuilding doesn't pay the bills. But um but I was like, you know what, people are really getting a lot out of this. And like the comments from people that, like, I have probably 1100, 1200 subscribers on my YouTube channel now, which like for some people that's not a lot, but we grew it organically. Like I can't believe that 1100 people want to hear what I have to say and watch me work out. Like I still don't get it. But after we started to like see the comments and get the feedback, I was like, wow, people actually are inspired by this and want to hear what I have to say. And then I kind of felt like it was my duty to, like, as an athlete, doing something that like less than 1% of the population could even dream of doing or have like the discipline to do. I felt like it was my duty to continue to like show people what it takes to like actually achieve something elite like that. And so when it came time to start this series for leading up to my pro debut, um, I had even more people that were like chomping at the bit. They were waiting all off season. They're like, when is there more content? When is there more content? The other day I was training, and I had my headphones in and I'm not very chatty unless I have my training partner with me. I'm not very chatty when I'm training. And this guy comes up to me and I'm a little bit annoyed that he's trying to talk to me while I'm training. But I train where I work too. And a lot of people know me there. So I really try to be respectful and like kind to everyone, even if I don't want to talk to anyone. And he's like, I don't mean to bother you. He's like, I was just watching your latest YouTube episode on my phone. And I looked up and I saw you training and I didn't know what I should watch to inspire me for my workout. And I was like, I almost started crying because that's the, like, I wanted that from the beginning. Like I wanted people to be like, I'm so inspired. And because she did it, I can do whatever it is I'm looking towards. That's why I did my first bodybuilding show. I wanted to teach people how they could be disciplined, how they could forget motivation, right? Do the same thing every day and work towards their goal. So it really came full circle for me. So that my original intention was that, and it seems like we're fulfilling that. So it's a great feeling.
Yeah. I think people really want genuine, just something genuine.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, and I've also like started to, in this series especially, like educate people more on things, and I feel like now I've got the validation and the like brand recognition behind me being a Camp Jansen coach. So people, not that they didn't value my word before, but now they know, like, okay, she's Camp Jansen back. Like, she knows what she's talking about. So I've started to give more tips. And now this season I have a training partner. And so she's also on my team, but she's still an amateur. So she'll compete next year. She's in her off season. So I'll often, they'll see me coaching someone and inspiring someone and pushing them. And then I'll talk about why we do certain things and what I have to work on and she has to work on. So, we're giving more, like we're educating a little bit more than in my first series or first season. And, but at the same time, like showing people like, this is how you level up. And it's not something different and crazy every time. Like if you watch my workouts, it's the same thing every single time. It's nothing sexy, but it's effective. And it's just, you're right, like the authenticity of it, because I don't do this to make money. Like I don't make money from my YouTube channel. I spend way more money on it than I get from it. And I think that's the big difference. Like I don't really care if someone doesn't like me. If someone comments like a nasty comment, I don't care. I'll clap back. I'll be like, thank you so much for stopping by. Like, thanks for being an armchair judge. Like, whatever. I truly don't care if someone doesn't like what I'm saying. I truly don't care if I'm not making money from it, because I've seen how many people it helps and inspires. And I think that's where like the authenticity and the truly being genuine it comes across, because I'm like, I'm doing this for me. And you can come along for the ride, or you can leave my YouTube page and not leave nasty comments.
I guess knowing that what you do is appreciated, I think that feels pretty good.
It does feel really good. Like Sean Clarita, 2-time 212 Mr. Olympia. I didn't know him when I didn't live in this area. Now I'm quite close with him and his wife. Like we're very good friends. And I used to watch his Machiavelli motivation videos and his training videos when I was doing my morning cardio. And I'm very rarely like inspired by someone. He inspired me. I was like, I love the underdog story. I love that everyone counted him out. He came and like blew everyone away. And, now I'm not on his level, but, we've got people kind of saying the same thing. They're like, I watched your leg day video as motivation before I trained legs today. I'm like, holy crap. Like, I've achieved it, right? That's what I've achieved. I don't care if Mr. Olympia doesn't watch my video, but like for the person that needs the motivation to get in the gym because their discipline isn't at the same level, I'm that source of motivation for them. Like what better feeling is there, Yeah. And the fact that someone like feels also comfortable enough to come up to me and tell me that is very cool. Because they're not like, maybe I've been told I'm intimidating sometimes. I think it's just my like training resting bitch face. But the fact that they felt like I'm going to go up and tell Jess this and like have a conversation with her, it's just, it's so much positivity. It just really like validates why I got into all of this.
Mm-hmm. What are your goals? What are your aspirations as far as competing and as far as, with your business and all that kind of stuff?
Funny you ask, because as I sit here at my desk, I have Post-its that are right here next to my computer with like my goals for the year. And some of them are very specific and some of them are a little more nebulous, but my top goal right now, being 2 weeks out, is to win my pro debut and qualify for the 2024 Olympia. I don't have a plan B. People ask, they're like, well, what if you don't win that? Like, what's next? I'm like, I'll figure that out that night or the next day. But my goal is to win. And I know it's incredibly rare. And I remember saying this to Sean when we visited him back in January for his daughter's first birthday party, because he lives down in Texas now. And I was like, I know it's rare. And he's like, doesn't mean you can't do it. Doesn't matter. Like, you go in with that same mindset. And I think I have why not me? Why not me? I believe I can do it. So that's my number one goal right now, because it's like very top of mind and it's right about here. And again, like no plan B, but I will do whatever it takes. So if it's not this first show, I know there are a couple of other shows. I'll go and win one of them, and we're going to get to the 2024 Olympia. I'm not going to be a bodybuilder forever. I don't want to run my body into the ground. I'm not old, but like for bodybuilding standards, like being in your late 30s and competing is different than being in your early 20s and competing. So there's other things that I want in life that you can't have at the same time as competing. So yeah, like I think I want to make the most of it, and I promised myself I'm going to make the most of it while I'm good and while I'm competing. So those are my two goals for coaching. I mean, it's so great that everything's happening at the same time, but it's also a little bit stressful. So like we just announced that I'm part of the team a few weeks ago. And so fortunately, that has led to a lot of like inquiries and new clients and new athletes joining the team. And then I think after I step on stage, there's going to be a lot of opportunities that come from that. And I do hope to fill out my roster by the end of this year and get some people that are going to be competing either by the end of this year or the beginning of 2025. I mean, I've got some like financial goals when it comes to like my career and where I want to be. And Justin, who is my coach, but also my mentor, I'm his assistant coach. We've talked extensively about what his trajectory has been in his years of coaching and what he plans for me. So I've got some pretty specific goals there. And yeah, I mean, that's those are the top goals right now. I think, you know, and I not to downplay them. There's a lot of work that goes into that, but I told myself 2024 was going to be the year that I went all in on this stuff. And so I'm going to look back on December 31st and say I achieved all of it, no doubt.
You know, I'm really looking forward to watching you, you know, moving forward in the next couple of weeks, and best of luck in the show. And past that, you know, I'm excited to just watch where your career goes. I think it's going to be very exciting and, you know, just cool to have a future Olympian on the podcast.
Stay tuned because this is going to be a big year. So if you guys go to the Camp Jansen website, it's, I think camp-jansen.com. I'm on there as one of the coaches. You can inquire to work with me. My Instagram is at jfalborn. And I also have a link in my bio there to inquire about working with me and apply to work with me. And then my YouTube channel is IFBB Pro, Jess Falborn. So y'all can subscribe there, please. Like, comment, only nice comments, because you're not going to like when I clap back if it's not a nice comment. But share as well, and I would love to hear people's feedback on the video.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.